Hi YouTube, you might have seen my last video where I made a character called Joe Yowza. He's a Yuzum from the band in Return of the Jedi. In this video I'm going to be making SY SNOOTLES. SY SNOOTLES is the yellow female singing character in Return of the Jedi as well. So this is the first stage, just making a wire armature for her. This is 2mm aluminium wire twisted around itself to get my overall shape. I've drilled a couple of holes in this wooden base and you can see the wire goes right through underneath it. This will give her extra support later on. These wire armatures are really quick to do and they make your whole figure a lot stronger. The next step is to use aluminium foil and you just crumple it up and this makes the overall kind of form of your figure. You should really try to squash the foil as firmly as you can to make it as dense as possible. This will make it stronger. If you squash, say, an arm or something and it gets too thin, you just add more foil on the top and keep squashing it until you get the overall width that you need. You can see here I've got the odd flap of foil that's just kind of hanging off. That doesn't matter at all because we're going to be going over this with something called milliput, and that presses into everything and firms everything up even more. But just make it as strong as you can and as dense as you can. Because aluminium foil is so much cheaper than modelling clay or milliput or super sculpey or whatever you decide to use, this technique saves a lot of money in the long run. Milliput is my favourite material to sculpt in, just because it sets rock hard. So for a creature like this, where it's got very thin legs and very thin arms, it just means that those legs and arms are going to end up really strong. Okay, you can see here where I started coating the whole figure with a layer of milliput. It doesn't have to be particularly thick, but you're just adding a coating over the whole lot of foil, and it obviously presses into the foil, like all the creases and things in the foil, and it just makes the whole thing nice and firm, and when it sets rock hard. So if you haven't used milliput before, it's a 2-part putty. You mix the 2 parts together in equal amounts, and then it takes 4 hours to dry rock hard at room temperature. Okay, for the next stages, I've started adding all her sort of folds and wrinkles. I've added a little hat in the middle on the top there of her head, and then I've put some wires into those eye stalks, and I've added 2 balls that are going to be obviously her eyeballs. I haven't done her lips yet. You can see it's still rough on the end of that. But I've worked my way down and I've started putting like muscle shapes on, like on her shoulders and on her arms. I've done her little skirt as well. The skirt has got lots of kind of thin rolled up bits of milliput, so you just basically make really long strands of milliput and then you can twist them around each other, or you can flatten them slightly and you can press into them to get little kind of details. All of those details will be picked up at the painting stage as well. I've added her kind of knee wrinkles, more muscles on the legs as well. And yeah, the wrinkles are quite easy to do because you just put the milliput on and then you get like a bit of plastic bag, like the plastic bag that comes with a milliput, and you just press through with like a sort of fairly blade-like modelling tool, and that gives you those wrinkle effects. I've done the toes as well on the feet, and it's really nicely firmly stuck to that baseboard now. Okay, next I've added her eyelids and her lips. I've done the 2 little tusk things that go underneath her neck as well. I've also added quite a lot more detail onto the skirt. So I've done some kind of trailing strands that come over her arm and joined to the skirt. And then I've also just added a whole load more strands. I've obviously done the hands as well. Put those on. You can drill into the arm and you can add some extra wires. So there's a wire for each finger. That really strengthens the hands as well. You can see here I've done a couple of beads as well on the skirt, and those just hang on wires. When they're all painted up they won't look like wires anymore, they'll just look like part of the skirt. But you can see, yeah, it looks a lot more detailed now. There's a couple more twisted bits on there as well. And altogether, yeah, all the detail in the skirt I'm really pleased with, and the whole thing is just looking a lot more like SY SNOOTLES now. For the paint stages I'm just using System 3 acrylics, and I started off with the base colour for her skin, which is just a mix of lemon yellow and titanium white. Next I really watered down some yellow ochre, and I've just used this as a wash, and If you put it in all the sort of deep wrinkles and folds, it just makes all those areas look a bit more shadowy and just gives it a general kind of brown hint to the whole figure. It's particularly effective in areas like the knee wrinkles, for example. You just brush it over the top of the knee and then it kind of trickles into all of those wrinkles. Next I made another really watery wash that was a kind of a greyish green colour, and I've just added that around a lot of the kind of shadow areas again. This again just neutralises the figure a little bit, makes it not quite such a vibrant yellow. I also painted her skirt in a really dark brown colour. This is just a mix of a very dark green and a very dark red. It's just a flat colour to start with, but you've got to make sure that you paint every single little bit. Next I added the green blotches all over her body. Some of them are really dark, some of them are quite pale. Even the dark ones though, I've done a sort of a blend to soften the edges of them. So none of them are hard edged, they've all got these kind of soft edges so they kind of blur into the yellow of her skin. I also made a much lighter brown colour where I added some yellow ochre and a bit of white, and then I've just dry brushed that on the top of all of this skirt. So you can see here it just picks out all the highlights, like on the beads and on all of the twisted sort of rope effects. If you haven't done dry brushing before, it's basically where you rub your brush on a bit of kitchen paper until the paint has almost completely run out, and then you're just using that to almost like dust the paint over the surfaces. That way it just picks out all the highlight areas and it leaves all the dark parts nice and dark. At this point I was really pleased with how she was coming on overall. I was particularly pleased with how the skirt was looking, but I knew she just needed these finishing touches. So you can see here for the last parts I've done her lips nice and bright red. I made some eyelashes. I made the eyelashes actually out of some pond liner, so they're kind of rubbery. I've done this feather on the top, which is a real feather, just painted yellow. You can see I've done her eyes as well, put some colour on her irises and her pupils. I've done a few more, just little bits and bobs here and there. I've done her tusks, painted them white, and those kind of pop out nicely and they match in with the whites of her eyes, so that's quite nice. And then it was just a case of painting the base as well. But you can see, like, it is the skirt I think that I'm kind of most pleased with. And I think at this point it's finished, although knowing me I might go in and just do a little bit of fine tuning as well later. But I'm also going to make her a microphone at some point. But I plan to show you all a video where I put a lot of the band members together, because I'm making a couple of the other figures as well to go with the band. So I'll show you those separately. And when I do, hopefully I will have made her a microphone by that point as well. The base pops really nicely in this nice brown colour as well. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's been useful for some of you. Check out my other videos if you get a chance. I've made lots of different figures from various movies. Hit subscribe if you want to see anything that I post up in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.